Hey everybody, we're here for a new episode of RLG Cast Reviews. I'm here, we're talking about Saturday Night, the movie, the first day of Saturday Night Live. He's got all his SNL stuff out. I'm here with
Not all of
Porco
it.
Rosso and Rosso Porco. And
Corn
today,
Frosties.
see, he's a little bit more Italian, so he's Rosso Porco, you know? Um,
Arigato gozaimasu.
JD 777 Putty from Puttyman. Their stuff will be in the description below as usual. Follow them, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we're going to be talking about Saturday Night Live, like I said, or Saturday Night, the movie about Saturday Night Live, the first episode.
Saturday night.
And JD will tell you exactly what I just said, but again,
In Italian. Ok, questo è un film dedicato al programma televisione di sabato sera che si chiama Saturday Night.
mhm. Yeah, it's about the first day.
It's basic, not even just the first day. It's the first hour and a half leading up to
the first
like,
episode.
leading up to the first episode. Like they literally
Which
start the movie at 10 o'clock at night.
and see, and what's funny is too is a lot of people, because of it being called SNL, thought it was called Saturday Night Live when it first came out. It actually was just called Saturday Night. The first, I think, season they just called it all Saturday Night.
Saturday night, yeah.
And then people didn't believe it was actually live, so they added the live the second season to make sure that it's aware of it and everything. Because that's the reason why they started, they didn't say, they do say live from New York, but they go live from New
New
York.
York,
It's
it's Saturday
Saturday
night.
night because it was show,
Which they still do.
Well, they do, yeah. But see, the thing is, if you hear the phrase, it doesn't say live from New York. It's Saturday Night Live. It just says live from New York. It's
Yeah,
Saturday night.
and it makes sense. And I like that they've stuck with that. So let's talk about this movie. I thought this movie was excellent.
This movie. Here's the thing. I got scared about this, especially with the casting. And what really drew me to this was first seeing some of the interviews with some of the cast members that play the characters, and like some of them, when you see them, you're like, wow, that one looks like them, and then some of them, you're like,
Yeah, a
that
lot of them
doesn't look
got
at
spot
all.
on.
Yeah, but
I think it was pretty good. I think Chevy Chase looks like him.
oh yeah, Chevy
I
Chase is the
think
Jim
spot on
Henson.
for Dan Aykroyd.
Jim Henson,
Oh
Dan
my
Aykroyd
God,
is pretty
yes.
good. Gilda Radner's like perfect.
Well, here's the thing. Gilda Radner, when you don't see her with the makeup and the hair, doesn't look like Gilda Radner to me. But then when you see her, but see, the thing is, at the same time, whenever you saw Gilda Radner on Saturday night, she looked totally different than she did was a regular thing. Like
Yeah.
she actually was a very beautiful woman. It's just when she was into her like
Gilda
modes of
Radner, everybody
comedy.
knows her for the character Rosanna, Dana,
Rosanna,
whatever.
Rosanna, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Which I have that
and
Funko.
which of course her and John actually were dating. So
They were married. No, John Belushi, yeah.
yeah, and so and see, the thing is, what made this so great was the controversies, everything that happened was real. I remember Chevy Chase, apparently they said through the community episodes and everything that he's very hard to work with, and so that the motions they did was so great. Like I was, like I said, watching this made me so concerned about how, with it leading up to the first show, how is it going to feel? And it felt like what I believed Saturday Night Live
Well, they
is when it goes
nailed
leading into
the
it.
anxiety of everything and like the
Mhm.
pressure that was on them to do it and like the constant movement. I wrote in my review even that I thought I would have liked it better if they did it like Birdman and it was just all one shot, that the camera would just reach a point where it would meet the next person and then just go with them rather than the cuts to things, because they're always walking around, right? So imagine like you're following Lauren and then Gilda walks by and it switches to her thing and it leaves him and it just starts following them. I thought that would have been a really cool element. That would have made the movie maybe the best movie of the year for me if they did something like that. Um, but like it's just well crafted. There is good dialogue. I thought like the secondary characters like the Willem Dafoe and like J.K. Simmons as
J.K. Simmons, he was great. I liked him in this film.
And that apparently is a true story as well, where he
I like
out.
I don't know if this goes into spoiler territories, but I like how he put Chevy Chase in his place with his insults.
And because he was a nobody at that point, and like for you to be the way you were, it's just really the one thing I didn't like, but I have ended up liking towards the end is that the Lorne Michaels character doesn't have that like fake Austin Powers like Dr. Evil like.
Oh, you're talking about he's like I'm Lord Michaels,
but at the same, but as it progressed, you realize that it's because he's not trying to get locked into this like satirical character of him. He's just trying to give you the basic, and that probably would have overshadowed.
Yeah, because even Mike Myers said that his portrayal of Lorne Michaels is an exaggerated Lorne Michaels.
Yeah.
Every one of them, because Conan O'Brien, Bill Hader, every person does a Lorne Michaels. Every cast member that you see, especially the ones that are really good at doing impressions, do a thing. And see, the other thing that I wanted to mention was that when it comes to that whole situation, I was at Jason Reitman. Jason Reitman even told them, I don't want you to study these characters. And the reason is because you're going to study the characters based off after this show. And that's not what we're wanting when it comes in this movie. We want you, and some of them still did because they wanted to get some of the mannerisms. But he said, I don't want you to go deep into it because the reason is I feel if you do, you're going to, all these cast members all got their own mannerisms by becoming these characters and becoming these people.
Yeah.
So taking that element would have made it a little more fake. He said, I want this to be real. But then apparently once it got closer to the shooting, they started looping the first season in the workroom where they worked and everything, in the green room where they were sat before they did shots. And that's because he said, I still want you guys to know what the pattern was, especially the first episode.
But they're different in that first season than they were because they became characters. Their human selves became characters. Like you gain this,
they
like,
became
ego
parodies,
and stuff. And I think in the first season, none of them were that. So it's good to see it. It's nice to see there's not going to be a spoiler section here, I don't think, because this is a
we
true
all know
story.
the story.
But I think it's really smartly put together and it feels real. It feels genuine. It feels
gritty.
It feels like the movie that we wanted. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you didn't know you wanted this, but after you watch it, you're like, okay, this is exactly what we needed. And it shows you Reitman's,
not the movie we wanted, but it's the movie we deserved.
We deserved. It shows you that Reitman has something to it, right? And a lot of people blame him for the new Ghostbusters not being good. He's not the director of that movie.
He was the director. He wasn't the writer.
No, he was not the director of the second movie.
He wasn't?
No, he was not.
Timmy's getting on it.
Timmy's getting on it.
But see, I did want to jump in here because, like, for example, at first when I saw the guy that played Belushi, like the whole, you could tell it's a fake beard and everything, but that kind of bugged me there for a little bit. But my situation was like, there's a lot of things because when it comes to SNL, I love it. I absorb it. I like the background stuff. I've always wanted to meet Lorne Michaels. Like when he was here in my town, they were shooting a movie with a Kristen Wiig. I was trying to, like, oh, what hotel is he staying in? I really just want to meet him. It's a big deal to me. And so watching this, there's little things like, for example, I remember Belushi literally saying, I don't want to wear that Bumblebee costume. And I'm like, are they going to talk about that? And they made it a prominent point of that first episode. Little things like that I heard stories about. They literally brought that in. The use of drugs that were in that situation. Not even just Belushi, but with all the other the cast members that used it. There was all that stuff going behind the scenes. And then I didn't know if it was true that they wanted him to fail this. But I think what the situation was, and I think that kind of pushed that a little more, was that they didn't want this show to fail. It was just a matter of he's putting a lot into it, and they felt that there was way too much and that it was going to fail. And so in return, I think they used that as a catalyst to say,
because it was supposed to be a 3-hour show that they reduced to an hour and a half.
Right. Well, not even just that. Like a prime example is, yes, some of the characters, like for example, the George Carlin stuff, I think they over exaggerated some of the stuff because George Carlin wasn't that bad because you could even, when you watch the first actual episode of SNL, you actually see he's really good on that stage as the host. And then, of course, there's sketches I didn't know were even cut at that time, but apparently down the road he did talk about that. So knowing that they even implemented things like that,
I like the scene where he's walking down the hallway, fuck you and fuck you and fuck you.
Yeah, but that's Carlin, you know what I mean? And so even that's another prime example. The casting, like Carlin, of like you said, Jim Henson was just so spot on. Like when I saw the guy that played Jim Henson, I'm like, dude, did they just dig up Jim Henson and make him younger? Like even his talking, the way he talked about his Muppets.
They put my Muppets in compromising positions.
And they actually did that. I heard so many interviews in the past about that, and that he was not happy about that. But like just to see it in the movie, this movie, I can't wait for it to come to Blu-ray and DVD. I want to get like whatever collector's edition of it. It's such a fun movie. It's such a tribute. It's such a tribute to SNL. And
as you can see, I like Kermit.
Yeah, right.
By the way, did Timmy get that information?
Yes, he did not direct. He co-wrote it.
And just to give you guys another heads up, this year, SNL is celebrating their 50 years. It's been on the air for 50 years.
And the 40-year or 45-year, whatever it was really good. The one when they had Eddie Murphy come back.
Yeah, like for example, they had They had the most recently Ariana Grande hosted, and wasn't even the singer. They had actually what's her name from Fleetwood Mac was actually the
Stevie Nicks,
singer,
yeah.
Stevie
Yeah,
Nicks.
but
And but there's like one sketch, and I know I'm going off topic, but there's one sketch where Ariana Grande does the voice of what's her name that did the Titanic song, and
Celine
like
Dion.
it's a
Oh,
sketch,
yeah.
yeah,
UFC, Celine Dion
it's
UFC. It's
oh,
so
it
good.
is so
I
good,
remember
and
to
so
love the UFC.
But
and so
Ariana Grande's vocal impressions are like,
Ariana Grande is one of the best co-hosts ever
mhm.
on SNL, and every time she's on, it's always good.
yeah.
Timberlake's the same way, but there's a lot. There's also like Tom Hanks, but that's the point. Even people that you would not see as comedic, SNL brings that out of them, and that's the reason why I love this movie so much is because it shows how good it was starting off, but how much it's grown. And even though we've had some bad steps, a lot of the featured players not being good, but then we always have that one diamond in the rough that ends up going huge in the world of comedy. And I don't know who it is right now, but someone's going to end up being a huge part of like what
Well,
comedy's
they're
going to be, and
definitely
SNL's a part of
pushing
it.
Bo and Yang like no tomorrow.
Yeah.
They are,
Um,
yeah.
anyways, just to like see the star power in and around what happened here, like all of these people basically went on to have good careers, and then you had not to
Hmm.
mention George Carlin there, you had Milton Berle was there. It's
Yeah.
like there's
Billy
just like
Crystal.
that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
there was Billy Crystal.
There were so many big. That guy was really good.
Yeah, the Billy
Rachel
Crystal.
Sennott was great as
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
what's his name's wife or girlfriend, Lorne Michaels.
Lauren Michaels, yeah.
Um, it's just a really well-rounded movie. It's filmed really well. It you get this the manic idea like there's so much going on. They're all young, and it's like right now you watch Saturday Night Live and it's very controlled because they've been around forever and it's an institution
Hmm.
and like it is what it is. But back then it was just a bunch of young people doing drugs and drinking, and
And
everyone
having a
was
good
messed
time.
up. There was all these extra people backstage that didn't need to be there, and there was all this like just a big ruckus. It was a mess. Everything was a mess.
But see that, and then that's the other thing. That's they didn't show the one part I always want to see in SNL. But again, I can understand it because the first episode was when it comes to SNL, there's a process to everything. You know, all the cast members you see, there's writers, but there's cast members write as well. You know what I mean? And sometimes writers become cast members, like Tina Fey. She was a writer that turned into a cast member, and so I didn't get to see that part of it. But at the same time, I realized they didn't really have probably a lot of that beat by beat at that point, or they did, and it was already done at that point because they talked about the dress rehearsal not
Yeah.
being recorded, but they do record the dress rehearsals. So the feel and pacing was so great, but I will admit I wanted a little more. And I think it's because just as an SNL fan, I want to see the deeper things. Like I've always seen these
Well,
documentaries on them and
there's
everything.
too many characters, and there's
Yeah.
not enough time to flush anyone out. Like everyone's development is really surface level, except for like Lorne.
Hmm.
Um, but it's it just works well enough. Like I could have used it being a little bit longer, but I'm not upset. It's a really well-rounded movie, and I'll tell you right now, it's not the best of the year. It's my favorite of the year, though.
Mm-hmm.
100%. It's my favorite.
But I
Yeah.
mean, I
And
might be,
I'm
I might,
not as big as an SNL guy as you guys are. I enjoy it. But I really did enjoy this movie. I like the
yeah.
little behind the scenes, like the lead up, that type of storytelling. I like the type of storytelling that they're doing there.
Yeah, and see, I've been watching it I've watched every single season, every single episode since I was a little kid. My mom would stay up late on Saturday nights, my mom would let me stay up, and then she's like, "All right, you got to go to bed." And I remember because the reason it was so distinct is the reason I remember wrestling Saturday night is because they would actually cancel the SNL episode because there would usually be a time when the ring would
No,
come.
whenever they wouldn't be an SNL episode, they'd put on Saturday night's main event on NBC.
Exactly. And I remember distinctly being excited because that was another thing that brought me into wrestling because we didn't have Raw and SmackDown back then. So I remember distinctly waiting for Saturday Night Live, but then Saturday made me then come. I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm okay with that and everything because I got into wrestling. But I will admit, when I was young, I was mad because I was like, I want my Saturday Night Live, but then that got me really into wrestling, and I never really thought about it until we started talking about this. I actually did not watch wrestling until Saturday Night Live. You know what I mean? It's because it interrupted that thing, which is a funny thing to say, but since then, even when we had the bad times and everything, like I will say, a couple seasons ago, it was just a train wreck of
When a
characters and
lot of the
everything.
big names a few years ago, like when Sudeikis left and Kristen Wiig left and who else?
Andy
Hader
Samberg,
left.
Andy
Even
Samberg,
even even
hater.
even after Andy Samberg, it wasn't too bad, but like
Well, he left
I
us.
would
Well, he left the same day, same season as Kristen Wiig.
right,
Yeah.
but then yeah, but that would probably be after season 42, I think, was when it started going downhill a little bit. Like
There
they
was
kind of
bits
got
like before this complete re-roster, like when they were going hard with Kate McKinnon and stuff, they were still pretty funny. Like I
Yeah.
watched a lot of that. It's once
Even
we
Leslie Jones.
once we completely turn to this new roster that we have is when I've kind of lost it, like the last 2 years.
See,
But like I grew up watching it as a kid. Like I remember watching it with my dad every Saturday night, the Chris Kattan stuff and the Will Ferrell stuff, and then before that the Chris Rock and like Mike Myers. Like I was always
I
there
was
watching
like even
that.
before with Joe Piscopo and all that too, right?
See,
So
the really time when it dropped off is when Cecily Strong, Pete Davidson, and Kate McKinnon all left. Those were three
yeah,
powerhouses.
Cecily
'Cause
Strong,
Pete-
she was one of my
That's
favorites.
the turnover right now to
Yeah.
this
Yeah,
new
yeah.
roster.
Because Pete Davidson, even though he wasn't good as live, he was really good with his shorts on the side. You know
His
what I mean?
last
Like the
stand-up
full-
is really funny. I recommend going and watching it. It's really
And-
good.
And I wish Jay Farrell would have lasted a little longer on that show.
But he talks about it though. He got tired of being held into just doing impressions all the time.
Okay, yeah, that makes
see,
sense.
He wanted to do something else.
And see, I'll be honest with you. I thought he was going to be the next big one because he was so good at impressions. But then I realized one thing. That's what he was actually only good at. That and doing stand-up.
He was going to become the
really
next
good...
Ari Spears.
Yeah, he couldn't do that. But that's the thing. Ari Spears is really good at that too. But the problem with both of them is when it comes to making characters of real people, that's good. But if you can't make your own characters, like Will Ferrell, these are guys
I watched
that can do
the recent
Tracy Morgan is a
documentary
perfect
type
example.
thing on Jim Carrey, and it talks just about that. Like before he got his big break with like In Living Color, when he was constantly trying to go for SNL and like doing his stand-up, he's like he wasn't that popular because everything he did was impressions, and that kind of comedy wasn't popular yet. Like people didn't want impressionistic comedy, so he would bomb at comedy shows until he got featured on something. I don't remember what it was, and then he got on like a bunch of talk shows, and then all of a sudden people started recognizing him, and then people started liking his comedy, and he got to In Living Color, and he made his own characters. He stopped doing constant
Commercial
impressions.
Bill, yeah, is a perfect example.
That's what Campo saying is a prime example. If you ever watch a stand-up comedian and even someone on SNL, impressions are good for both of those stages because you can just do your own. The problem is when you can't come up with, like, for example, prime example, the Spartan cheerleaders. That's original characters. Those are no parodies. So that means that people like Will Ferrell can actually make characters that are their own, that are not impressions of other ones. The problem with people that do impressions, they do great on SNL, but they can't take that into the real world when it comes to movies. So whenever you're watching a new cast member, you got to think, is he good at this because he does impressions good, or is he good at this because he can make his own characters that are brand new?
And all we need to know is that this movie is right on target, and you know, like that's one of my favorite characters, by the way, Kristen Wiig, the Target lady.
Target lady, right there, baby.
She's like, welcome to Target.
I love the episode where the guy's still at the register. She's like, "Come on,
Which one's the character with the tiny little hands?
Oh, that's how I love that character. So the sister, the hot sisters, and she's like the
all
ugly
the sisters, and she's like, and I like poop, and then she'll just come in and say the most weirdest things. I can't think of the name of it, but it's the something almond show or something like that. I can't remember. It's not almond.
Yeah.
Like,
you know what else is a great one too? Just sidebar: the Cecily Strong and I can't remember the other lady's name. Amy something, when they do the characters, the like models, and they're like inscrutable.
Yeah.
Oh no, the porn stars.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the porn stars, so they don't know the words, and like they're like,
Cecily
I love
Strong
pull it
and
on.
not Abby Elliott. Abby Elliott was
It's Amy
before.
something.
Amy.
She also used to do the Miley Cyrus.
Yeah, she did really good. Yep, she did really good.
Anyways, we're way off target. We don't need to know her name.
I mean, it's still Saturday night, so
let's drop scores here and let's end this.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Putty.
Oh, I get to go first. I'm giving this a big score. This is a 9 for me. I was so happy how this turned out. Like, I was so afraid going into this, and I think it was probably about 15 minutes into it. I was like, okay, they are getting the rhythm of what I believe Saturday Night Live to be, and I'm starting to get into this, especially when they started showing the casting and everything of the actual like prime time players, and I'm like, yes, I'm loving.
Oh, you know what's his name was really good? The guy who played Andy.
Andy Kaufman.
Kaufman.
He won't be able to do Jim Carrey, Andy Kaufman, but I love how he turned the room around and did the Mighty Mouse thing there.
Yeah,
and I was like, pull it off, and he did. He did a great job of that sketch. So.
Vanessa Bayer, thank you, Timmy.
Vanessa Bayer,
Yep.
There you go. Not Amy. JD score.
I gave this an 8.4.
All right, that's good. It's unbiasedly, I gave it an 8.1. My favorite movie of the year. I think it's good. These scores are good. and you should go watch this movie. And that's all we're talking
Definitely
about.
recommend it. I'm glad I ended up watching this. Originally, I
you've-
wasn't supposed to do this review.
If you've seen it or you watch it after a review, let us know in the comments. And thanks for watching. Like and comment, subscribe, check out their channels and all that stuff. And go ahead, Putty.
And live from New York, it's let's get the hell out of here.